Hello and welcome to our Getting Started with Remote Desktop Manager video series. This second video is designed to help familiarize users with the various tools, resources, and functionalities available in Remote Desktop Manager. We'll cover how to use and navigate the desktop application, import, edit, and use remote sessions and credentials, set up some basic automation tasks, and even showcase some of RDM's most powerful features that will help you get up and running quickly and hopefully make managing your remote sessions simple and easy. Before we get started, let me give you a bit of context so you can become familiar with our environment. My primary user is Maurice, an IT pro who has recently been promoted at Windjammer Corp and is tasked with getting RDM up and running for his team of technicians. In the previous video of the series, Bob, his administrator, configured RDM to use a locally hosted, advanced, team-based SQL Server data source called Windjammer SQL. There, he set up users, groups, permissions, vaults, and security options for the team. He conveniently packaged it into a custom installer.msi file and pushed it onto Maurice's workstation. Since today's video is using a SQL Server data source, the user and group management windows will look a bit different than those using our cloud-based Devolutions Hub and self-hosted Devolution Server data sources. Also, although much of the functionality of what you'll see today is available in both the free and paid versions of RDM, advanced features related to shared databases, vaults, and role-based access control would only be available with an advanced data source included in the paid version. Okay, let's start by having Maurice launch Remote Desktop Manager for the first time. As Maurice opens the application, the first step is for him to authenticate. Since his admin Bob checked the user must change the password on login option, Maurice will now have to enter in the password Bob gave him, and then he'll enter in his own that he wishes to use to access RDM. Also, his organization has chosen to use a security provider to encrypt all aspects of the SQL data source. And since this is a brand new installation on this workstation, Maurice will have to enter the appropriate decryption method to access the data. In this case, the security provider method used was the passphrase, so he'll have to enter the passphrase that Bob has provided him with. All right, now he's in. So the first order of the day is for Maurice to add some commonly used remote sessions and connection management tools into Remote Desktop Manager. So let's pick a vault like the Windjammer IT Vault and go ahead and add some sessions. Adding remote sessions in RDM is something that can be accomplished in a variety of ways. First, we can add them manually. Secondly, we can also scan the network for resources and import them with the handy-dandy network scan tool. And thirdly, we can also import sessions from popular remote sources like RDC-Man, mRemote, VNC, etc. So let's start with the first method and have Maurice add a session manually. So he'll first click the New Entry icon, which will bring up the New Entry window. You'll notice here that RDM supports a wide variety of session types. In fact, it integrates with over 300 different types of technologies to help you become more secure and productive in your day-to-day work. Now, for this example, we're going to have Maurice select an SSH shell. Now we'll have him give an appropriate name, as well as provide the host information and the username and password that's required to access this remote server. Now you'll notice here there's several tabs that give you advanced options. We're not going to touch those right now, but you might want to go back there later to check out all the options and features that Remote Desktop Manager provides. Now let's go ahead and let him open up this first session. All right, great job, Maurice. Another interesting way of bringing in remote sessions into Remote Desktop Manager is by using the network scan tool. Now, this powerful tool can scan your network for appropriate resources and bring them directly into your vault. So here he'll right-click on the root and select Import, and then Import with Network Scan. Maurice will select a specific range that he wants the network scan tool to scan, and then you'll notice that the interface will start populating with various remote sessions, and now he can go and either select them all or unselect and specify which ones he wants. So he's just going to pick a few different RDP and SSH sessions that he wants to bring into Remote Desktop Manager. Now he can batch import them as is, or he can check the edit imported entry box, which will in succession bring up each entry where he can change the name of the entry and provide username and password directly into the entry. We're going to skip hard coding username and passwords in the entries. All we're going to do right now is rename the sessions to the names that are more conventional with his team. Now, the third method we're going to take a look at is to import sessions from an external source. Now, you may have used a different remote connection manager in the past, like RDC Man, and that is what Maurice has been using for many years now. So he wants to go ahead and import just a few sessions here from his RDC Man and bring them into Remote Desktop Manager. So let's do that right now. So we'll have Maurice right-click on the root and select Import, and import sessions from his Remote Desktop Connection Manager RDG file, amidst a variety of other remote session management tools there that are available for you to import from as well. All right, now that he selects that, he's going to go ahead and find the file that he exported earlier and select which entries he wants to bring in. He'll select them all and click OK. And notice here, it created a neat little folder with his 3 entries that he had in RDC Man already for him to use. Now, all of these endpoints require specific credentials to access them. And since we're trying to improve productivity without sacrificing security, let's find ways to use credentials in the most effective way in Remote Desktop Manager. So the first credential that we'll be entering for Maurice is what's called the My Personal Credential, which is a default credential. You can find this by going to File and then My Account Settings, and then you'll see here the My Personal Credential type. And this could be stored either locally on the workstation itself or on the database. We're going to choose database for this example. Then once he selects the My Personal Credentials, a pop-up window will appear, which he can select either the username password entry type, or he can choose from a variety of external tools that he can use for his own personal credentials. Let's select this username password. He'll put in his username, which is Maurice, and his password that he uses to access most of his devices and endpoints. Now, as is the case with many administrators, Maurice actually has a secondary account. This one has elevated privileges, and he only uses it when he needs to perform certain functions that require more permissions. But this is not the account that he uses daily. So let's have him repeat this process using the My Privileged account. Now, another common way of using credentials is to create a single credential type and have it shared amongst many users. So that's what we're going to do next. So here we're going to click on the new entry. We'll choose username and password for this entry. And we'll call this credential Windows Admin and put in the username and password that corresponds with this role. And now let's have him create another shared credential, and we'll call this one Server Admin. If perchance you already have a password manager that you're using and you plan on continue using, no problem. If I add a new entry, you'll see that Remote Desktop Manager supports and integrates a large variety of popular password management solutions so that you can integrate directly with Remote Desktop Manager and use the credentials that are already stored in your solution. Since Maurice is always trying to maintain the highest standards in security, he's opted to put his credentials into KeePass as opposed to Excel spreadsheet and Post-it notes. So good for him. Since Maurice was already anticipating to transfer his credentials from KeePass into Remote Desktop Manager, he's already backed up and exported the file into an XML format to import it into RDM. Now, the location that he's going to import his credentials into is the user vault. The user vault is a perfect place to store business-related credentials, websites, alarm codes, any information that pertains to the user, but doesn't necessarily want to be shared with other members of the team. So first, he selects on his user vault and then right-clicks and selects import logins from KeePass, and we'll select the XML file. Now he's going to choose credentials since that is the type of entry he's entering in. And then he'll go through the prompts and then select all of them and click OK. Now you'll notice that it created a folder called database with the various folder names that were in KeePass, and he's got several different credentials that he can use throughout Remote Desktop Manager when needed. So Maurice has been nicely filling up his vault with credentials and remote sessions for his team to use. Now it's time to organize things a bit. So notice here in Remote Desktop Manager, you can use a folder structure to better organize all of your entries and so that it makes sense for the team to where to find the resources that they need. But for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and speed this portion up, but it's really easy to create folders and organize items. Now to move multiple items, simply Control select them and then right click and select move, then choose the corresponding folder where you want them to go, and voila, it's all done. I'm going to repeat the same process for the rest of these, and we'll be back in just a sec. While we're here, let's take a closer look on how credentials can be linked up in each individual entry. You'll notice that there's several options here. The first one is custom. That's when you want to hard code the credential directly into the entry itself. The linked vault is where you link it to a shared credential that is available in that vault. Next up is the inherited option, which lets you inherit whatever credential properties have been set in either the folder or the root above it. You can also select the My Personal Credentials, which is what we did earlier, and this would plug in Maurice's personal credentials. You can select None, which means that no credential will be provided through this session. You can also select Find by Name User Vault, which will search the user's user vault for the entry that they would like to run to open up this session. And then finally, there's the My Privileged Account, which is very similar to the My Personal Credential, and that can be set individually by user. Okay, the next step is to get these credentials that we just created and actually link them up with the remote sessions. Now, how do we do that? One way this can be accomplished is by selecting each session that shares the similar credential type and then right-clicking on it, then going to Edit, Batch Edit, Change Saved Credential, and then in the credential mode, we can select the linked vault, which will link it to credentials stored in that vault, and select the credentials Windows Admin. Now, if ever those endpoints username and password changes, all you have to do is change that Windows Admin username and password, and it will reflect on all of the correct sessions as well. Now let's select these other two sessions that we did not select earlier, and we will batch edit them. And here we will provide them with the server admin credential since they require different credentials to run than the Windows admin credential. So this is the part that you've all been waiting for, how to launch multiple remote sessions and what it looks like in Remote Desktop Manager. So here I'm going to go ahead and open up several different sessions, RDP as well as SSH, and we'll have them all running at the same time. Now, if you see here, all of the sessions can easily be interacted with because they're all nested in these tabs here in my embedded view. Now, if you'd like to open up a session not in the embedded tab view, that's easy to change as well. Well, if you right-click on an entry and scroll down to Properties, you'll notice here that there is a display mode. So you can have them embedded in the tabs, or you can have them undocked or in external. For example, this Telemark DC1 is externally opened up using an RDP protocol. And since it's a window, I can float it around and minimize it and close it if needed. Another great functionality in Remote Desktop Manager is the ability to broadcast SSH commands to multiple SSH sessions at the same time. You simply right-click on the session, then click Broadcast Input, select the SSH sessions that you want to broadcast the terminal commands to, then whatever you type in one SSH command will appear in all of the broadcasted sessions at the same time. In our previous scenario, Maurice initiated multiple remote sessions within his organization's infrastructure. However, accessing endpoints outside the local network requires a VPN, which, you guessed it, seamlessly integrates with RDM for remote sessions. Shared resources like VPNs, macros, scripts, tools, and contact info are recommended to be stored in the System Vault, a central repository accessible throughout the RDM ecosystem. So let's have him head on over to the System Vault down here to the left. And then he can click on Add VPN Tunnel Gateway to add a new entry. Now, if you notice here, we have a wide variety of VPNs that can be used. And if you don't see your VPN on the default screen, click on the add-on manager where we have a whole bunch more integrations available. At Windjammer Corp, they have a custom VPN that they use internally. We understand that not all VPNs are created equal, but they all function in a similar way. So your options might look different, but you'll have to put in some basic information like the host name, maybe some credentials, as well as some parameters like where the VPN executable can be found. Okay, so our VPN has been added to our system vault and is ready to use in any other vault or session. First, since all of the remote sessions reside in this remote servers folder, we're going to apply the VPN at the folder level and have all the sessions under it inherit the folder's VPN properties. So we'll have Maurice right-click the remote servers folder and then select the VPN tunnel gateway option on the left. Then the first setting is the connect option, which he'll select connect if unable to ping or port scan. That way RDM doesn't try calling the VPN if it's already been opened. And for type, he's going to scroll down and select session since he already created the VPN entry in the system vault. Next up, he'll click the setting session tab and there he can link it and select Windjammer VPN. Great. Now the VPN has been applied at the folder level. Now all we have to do is select these other entries under it, right-click and select Edit, Batch Edit, Edit General Settings, and then go down to the VPN Tunnel Gateway option, override the VPN, and then here, since we already set this on the folder level, we want it to inherit everything from the folder above it. And while we're at it, why don't we have him rename that folder to remote servers with VPN? That way everybody knows that this folder has VPN properties applied to it. Okay, so let's test a session and see if it works. Notice as he clicks open session, the VPN has popped up and is running. And you'll notice that all the subsequent sessions after this will actually ping the remote server to see if the VPN needs to open or not. Since it's already open, it doesn't need to open it all over again. Now's a perfect time in our video to take a quick look at how to modify user access both in Remote Desktop Manager as well as if you're using Active Directory in the AD console itself. Well, it looks like Maurice just received a ticket to modify Kelly's permissions in Remote Desktop Manager, as well as update which Active Directory group she belongs to. Since Kelly is taking on a new role as an IT technician, she needs access to this Windjammer IT Vault. If I click on the permissions of this root, you'll notice that Kelly is not a member here, so we're going to have to add her into a group or manually add her to the vault. So first I'm going to click on Vaults, and then we'll select the Windjammer IT Vault, and down here there's a Technicians user group, which I'm going to conveniently double-click to add her to the Technicians group so she can have access to this vault. And after a quick refresh, there she is. Now the next step is for us to add the AD console so that we could directly modify the Active Directory groups and add her to the IT Technicians Active Directory group. Early in the video, when Maurice was organizing his contents of his vault, he created a domain tools folder because he knew that he wanted to add his Active Directory dashboard and other administrative tools in here. And since this is more of an administrative folder, he wants to restrict the permissions so that not anybody has access to it, just the admins. So to modify the permissions on this folder, we'll start by selecting on Properties, and then in the Security section, we'll select Permissions, and we will override the permissions and select Never. That means nobody can have access to this folder, just the administrators. Now, if we wanted to fine-tune the permissions here, we could always say Grant Access, select various permissions to apply to either users or user groups within this folder. All right, now we're going to take care of the Active Directory portion. So we'll start by clicking on the new entry icon and then selecting the Active Directory dashboard. And this will allow us to connect to our Active Directory and make modifications. Then we will fill in the information, give it a name, select the host and domain, and we'll also assign the proper credential in the credentials section to be able to access the Active Directory. Now, if you remember earlier, this modification that we're doing was actually generated by a ticket. So let's go ahead and keep track of those tickets in our log functionality in Remote Desktop Manager. So the first thing we're going to want to do is have Maurice go to Logs. And since we want it to log when he opens this entry, we'll select that to Custom and then prompt for comment on open. So we'll do an open comment is required and a ticket number is required. Now let's go ahead and open this Active Directory dashboard, and you'll notice here that as soon as he opened it, that it was prompted to actually enter in a ticket number as well as a comment. This kind of behavior can be applied to pretty much any type of entry in Remote Desktop Manager. So whether you're opening or closing a session or even viewing a password, you can have the user comment or put a ticket number in why they're doing this action. Okay, so now Maurice has a direct access to his Active Directory, and he's going to navigate to the correct location where the user group that he needs to modify is. So here's the IT Technicians group, and he's going to go to Members and then find Kelly in here. And we have a few of them because it's a demo environment, but this is the right one here. And there we go. Kelly has been successfully added to the IT Technicians AD group. And if I go back on the entry and I select on logs, if I scroll to the right over here, you'll notice that the comment is there as well as the ticket number, just to keep track of what's going on in the system. Now, if I quickly jump over to Kelly's workstation, you'll notice that she's sporting the dark theme of Remote Desktop Manager, but you'll also see that that domain tools folder is not available for her to see because we didn't want her to have access to it. But she can fully open any remote session without having to see the passwords whatsoever. And the VPN integration is seamless so that she can get her work done without having any issues. One of the most sought out functionalities in Remote Desktop Manager, and probably one of the reasons why you're here, is to help consolidate all of your IT tools in one place. And this includes adding automations, scripting functionality, macros, and so much more. This is why a lot of IT pros refer to Remote Desktop Manager as their IT toolbox. Now, we don't have time to show Maurice all of these available tools, but let's have him introduced to just a few. So let's start off with what we call our playlist. So to add a playlist, simply click on the plus icon anywhere in the system to add a new entry, and then either scroll down in popular or search for playlist. Now we'll have him name it to whatever he wants. So he's going to go and put daily tasks. And then here in the connections section, he can add all of the entries he would like to launch. So he's going to start off with a website entry and then maybe a couple RDPs and a few SSHs, just things that he wants to run every single morning when he gets to the office. And then now with this new playlist, he can just open selection and it will automatically launch all of the entries within that playlist. That playlist can be edited at any time he wants. And since the remote sessions require a VPN, it's going to go ahead and launch that VPN first before opening up the remote sessions as well. So a really convenient way to have all of your sessions launch at once. Now, while we're here, we can also check out what's called the thumbnail view. The thumbnail view is a simple way to get a quick overview of all the remote sessions that are going on at the same time. If you click the little live display icon, you'll also get a real-time display of your RDP sessions, and you can have them refresh every few seconds or so. A lot of great tools are packed in Remote Desktop Manager, and one easy way to do that is simply to go to any remote session and select on the tab above that's listed macros, scripts, and tools. Here you'll find a variety of functions that you could run on remote sessions. And also any macros or scripts that you create will also appear here later on. We'll see that in just a second. You can see here that Maurice is going to check out the netstat as well as the event viewer and computer management snap-in. Now our user Maurice has been itching to try out some powerful PowerShell scripting functionality directly in Remote Desktop Manager. So to do that, he's going to add a PowerShell script in the domain tools folder, and he'll just simply type PowerShell to search for it, and they have local scripts and remote scripts. He wants to add a remote PowerShell script. And he'll start by naming the script Windows Update. Then he can put a simple PowerShell command here, or he can put an embedded script where he'll copy and paste his script directly in there. Or finally, he can also go into the working directory below and link it to an existing PowerShell script. Now Maurice is opting to just embed the script here, so he'll just copy and paste it and hit OK. Then we'll have him go to the Advanced tab so he can specify even more options like the Use Session Credentials option. This will allow PowerShell to use the credentials stored in that remote session to run it since it needs administrative rights. He can also select on the Open Embedded tab so that it opens up directly in Remote Desktop Manager. Okay, so there's the Windows Update script. And then if you notice back, if we go to this Windjammer 40 below, the script now appears in this remote session. All he has to do is click on Windows Update, PowerShell will execute, and then run the script. So you can see that with PowerShell and Remote Desktop Manager, there's really no limit what you can do to help make life easier for you as an IT pro. Well, great job. Looks like you made it to the end of our tutorial video. Now, if ever you want to go back, please feel free to use those timestamps to find exactly what you're looking for. Now, if there's ever something in this video that we didn't cover, please feel free to visit us at support.devolutions.net, where one of our team members will more than happily answer any of your questions and see if we can assist you find the answers you're looking for. I'd also like to mention that we have a very active community forum online at forum.devolutions.net, where engineers and developers and users just like you can interact with each other and find solutions to the different questions that you may have considering any of our solutions. Well, we hope you enjoyed this video, and if you could do us a favor, go ahead and like and subscribe to our channel to find more videos just like this one. We hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for choosing Devolutions.